Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe to my channel for more exciting videos, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of quiet that echoes, the kind that reminds you something or someone is missing. Ben stood in the kitchen, his hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had long since gone cold. The early sunlight spilled across the countertops, catching the edges of framed photos, holidays, birthdays, school sports days. A life captured in still moments. Upstairs, a door creaked. A suitcase rolled across the floor. "Dad?" Jack's voice called out. "Yeah, mate," Ben replied, clearing his throat as if it might steady something inside him. "Kitchen." A few seconds later, Jack appeared, taller than Ben sometimes remembered, older than he was ready to accept. At 19, there was a quiet confidence in him now, not a boy anymore. "Tea or coffee?" Ben asked, automatically slipping into routine. "Tea," Jack said. "One last proper one before I go, yeah?" Ben smiled. "One last for now." As the kettle boiled, they stood side by side in comfortable silence. It was the kind of silence that had taken years to build, one that didn't need filling. But today, it felt heavier. Later that morning, as Jack loaded his suitcase into the car, Ben lingered by the front door. He had done this before, with Sam, his eldest, when he left for university. He thought he'd be prepared this time. He wasn't. "You've got everything?" Ben asked, even though he'd already checked twice. "Yeah, Dad, I'm not disappearing forever," Jack grinned. "Feels like it," Ben muttered. Jack paused, then stepped forward and hugged him. Tight, quick, but meaningful. "I'll call," Jack said. "You better," Ben replied. And just like that, the car pulled away. The house exhaled. Inside, Annie stood by the window watching until the car disappeared down the road. Annie had always been different from Ben in moments like this. Where he felt everything loudly, she carried it quietly. "He'll be fine," she said softly. "I know," Ben replied, though his voice betrayed him. She turned to him, studying his face the way she had done for over 20 years. "You're going to miss them more than you thought, aren't you?" He let out a breath. "Yeah, I really am." Annie nodded, then gave a small smile. "Come on, we've survived worse." Ben laughed lightly. "Have we?" "Raising them?" she said. "Definitely." That afternoon, Ben found himself sitting alone in the living room. The television flickered on silently, tuned to GMBT, the show he had spent years hosting. Usually, it brought him comfort, a familiar rhythm, a reminder of his place in the world. But today, even that felt distant. His eyes drifted to a photo on the shelf. Him, Annie, Sam, and Jack on a beach holiday years ago. The boys were small then, clinging to their parents, laughing without worry. He picked it up. "When did it go so fast?" he murmured. Later that evening, Annie found him in the garden, sitting on a bench surrounded by plants she had spent years cultivating. "You're in my territory," she said, a playful edge to her voice. Ben smiled. "Thought I'd see what all the fuss is about." She sat beside him. "And?" "It's peaceful," he admitted. "Not my usual thing, but I get it." Annie glanced at him. "You don't have to suddenly become me, you know." "I know," he said. "That's kind of the point, isn't it?" She raised an eyebrow. Ben leaned back, looking up at the sky. "We've always been different. You like this, quiet, space, your own company. I like noise, activity, people. And yet," Annie said softly, "we've made it work." Ben turned to her. "That's what I've been thinking about all day." Years earlier, before careers, children, before life became complicated, they had been something simpler. Friends. "We were great mates," Ben said now, echoing a truth he had come to appreciate more with time. "Still are," Annie smiled faintly. "Exactly," he said. "That's the foundation. Everything else, it changes. Kids grow up, jobs get busy, life throws things at you. But that, friendship, it stays. And space." Ben laughed. "Yes, and space." Annie leaned back on the bench. "You didn't always understand that." "No," he admitted. "I used to think if we weren't doing everything together, something was wrong." "And now?" he said. "Now I realize it's the opposite. Giving each other space, that's what keeps things right." Inside the house, the silence was still there, but it no longer felt empty. It felt different. A new chapter waiting to be written. Later that night, Ben sat at the kitchen table again, this time with a fresh cup of tea. Annie moved around the room, tidying, her presence calm and steady. "Do you remember when Sam was born?" Ben asked suddenly. Annie smiled. "How could I forget?" "I was terrified," he said. "I thought, how are we going to do this?" "And we did," she replied simply. "Yeah, we did." He paused, then added, "And now they're gone." "Not gone," Annie corrected gently. "Just living their lives." Ben nodded. "I know. I'm proud of them. Really proud." "But," she prompted. "But I miss them," he admitted. "More than I expected." Annie walked over and sat across from him. "That just means you did it right." In the days that followed, Ben began to notice small things. The house stayed tidier longer. The fridge was less crowded. The evenings stretched out, quieter, slower. At first, it unsettled him, but gradually, something shifted. He started going for morning runs again, watching matches without distraction, calling Sam to talk about university, texting Jack to ask where in the world he was. And, more importantly, he started rediscovering something he hadn't realized he'd set aside: time with Annie. One Saturday, Annie suggested they visit an art gallery. Ben hesitated. "You know, that's not really my thing." She smiled. "I know, but you said you're open to trying." He sighed, then grinned. "All right, but next weekend we're watching football." "Deal." At the gallery, Ben wandered through rooms filled with paintings he didn't fully understand, but he watched Annie as she moved from piece to piece, her eyes lighting up, her thoughts flowing freely. And suddenly, he understood. It wasn't about the art. It was about her. Later, walking through a nearby garden, Ben slipped his hand into Annie's. "You know," he said, "this isn't so bad." She laughed. "High praise." "I mean it," he said. "I think this is what we need now." "What do you mean?" Ben looked around, the open space, the quiet beauty, the sense of possibility. "The boys are off living their lives," he said. "Now it's our turn again." Annie tilted her head. "Our turn?" "Yeah," he said, "to figure out what this next chapter looks like, together, but also separately in the ways that make us who we are." She smiled softly. "That sounds like us." That evening, back at home, Ben stood once more in the kitchen. But this time, the silence didn't echo. It settled. He picked up his phone and sent a message to both Sam and Jack. "Proud of you both. Miss you. Always here." A few moments later, replies came in. "Love you, Dad." Ben smiled, placing the phone down. Annie walked in carrying 2 glasses of wine. "To us?" she said, raising hers. Ben clinked his glass against hers. "To us," he agreed. And as they stood there, in the home that had seen laughter, chaos, tears, and love, Ben realized something important. Marriage wasn't about holding on tightly. It was about knowing when to let go. Of routines, of expectations, even of the life you once had. Because if the foundation was strong, if friendship, respect, and space were there, then what remained wasn't loss, it was freedom. And as the night settled around them, quiet but full, Ben Shephard felt something he hadn't expected in this new chapter of life. Not just nostalgia, not just longing, but excitement for what came next.